This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it's Friday, which means it's time for our National Town Hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, the guy I think of as America's senator. People in Vermont know him as theirs. Senator Sanders, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Tom.
I saw earlier in the week, and people who watch or listen to the program every day will know this well, that you published your 12 prescription, 12 items that we could do to basically take back America or make America work again. And I believe you'd like to go through them and then have people call in and with their thoughts on these things.
Here's the story, Tom. I think people who listen to the show have heard you and me talk, and many callers calling in about the very serious problems facing our country, which is the collapse of the middle class, growing income and wealth inequality, the loss of millions of manufacturing jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of have talked a lot about the problems, but it's equally important to talk about the solutions. Where do we go forward? What makes sense? How do you revitalize the American economy so that it works for the middle class and not just the millionaires and billionaires? So I was on the floor this week talking about 12 specific ideas, none of which, by the way, people will not have thought of. I mean, not the most radical ideas in the world. But if we were to carry these out, it would very significantly transform our country and especially the middle class of this country. So if you don't mind, let me just go through it. And if people want to call in during the course of the show to discuss these ideas and whether they like them or not, I'd love to discuss it. First thought, the truth is unemployment is not 5.8%. Real unemployment is over 11% if you include those people who have given up looking for work or who are working part-time. If we invested $1 trillion in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, and that's our roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, rail, airports, all of which need work. The people who know most about it think that we should invest $3 trillion to bring our infrastructure up to par. If you did $1 trillion over a period of some years, we could create 13 million decent-paying jobs. And just imagine what America would look like, and all over the country. We're rebuilding our roads, rebuilding our rail system, making it much more efficient, having state-of-the-art water systems and wastewater plants, rebuilding our dams. What it would mean to America in terms of making us more efficient and productive, as well as putting millions of people back to work. So rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and investing in that is something absolutely we need to do. Number two, I think that climate change is real. That's what the scientists overwhelmingly tell us. If we're going to preserve this planet for our kids and our grandchildren, we need to transform our energy system. And that means investing in energy efficiency and sustainable energy, making our homes and buildings much more energy efficient, and moving aggressively to wind, solar, geothermal, and other sustainable energies. And when you do that, the United States leads the world. We create new technologies. We also create jobs. But most importantly, we protect the planet for our kids and our grandchildren. Another area that interests me very much, and I'm excited about it, we're seeing a little bit of it here in Vermont, a little bit in Ohio, is the idea of worker ownership of businesses. And what we see sometimes is business guys who have started a business, they want to retire, and they don't want to see their plant or their business move to China. They want their workers to continue that business. We've got to make it easier for the workers and those business owners to be able to transform that business into a worker cooperative. Instead of giving tax breaks to corporations who want to move jobs to China, I think we should provide tax incentives to businesses that want to transform their company into a worker-owned enterprise. Clearly, in my view, history is not debatable on this, that workers who are members of unions, who are able to negotiate decent contracts and working conditions, do much better than non-union workers. Right now, it is, in fact, very, very hard because of employer opposition for workers to form unions. We want legislation that makes it possible for those workers, a majority of workers who sign a card saying they want to be in a union, to be in a union. It goes without saying that we have millions of workers in this country today who are struggling with horrendously low wages. We've got to raise the minimum wage to a livable wage. I was just at a rally in Washington, D.C. yesterday. I think there are about 150 of them all over the country, where workers are fighting for a higher minimum wage, for the right to join unions. Those workers who are working for companies that get government contracts in government buildings. I was out there with them in Washington, D.C., and they want to see the minimum wage raised to $15 an hour. They want to be able to join a union, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Clearly, when we talk about justice, it is not acceptable that women are making 78 cents on the dollar for what a man makes doing the exact same work. We need to make sure we have pay equity in this country, equal pay for equal work for women workers. I think an issue that you and I have talked about but is not talked about anywhere near enough is our disastrous trade policies. That is NAFTA, TAFTA, Permanent Normal Trade Relations with China, which have given a green light to many companies to shut down in America and move to low-wage countries. We have lost some 60,000 factories in the last 12 or 13 years. We need to have companies reinvesting in America and not in low-wage countries all over the world. So trade becomes a very important part, I think, of a serious an agenda to rebuild the American middle class. We live in a highly competitive global economy. We cannot compete effectively for good-paying jobs unless we have a well-educated workforce. Some years ago, the United States led the world in terms of the percentage of our people who graduated college. Today, we are in 12th place. Other countries understand the significance and the importance of making sure that their people, regardless of income, get a college education. We do not. So you're having college absolutely unaffordable for a lot of working-class families. Other young people are graduating college deeply, deeply in debt. That's crazy. It's not only unfair to the families and the individual young people, it is stupid for our economy. We want to encourage everybody who has the ability and the desire to get a higher education, no matter what their age is, no matter what their income is, to be able to do so. You know, it stuns me that 40, 50 years ago, some of the great public universities in this country, University of California, colleges in New York City, state colleges all over this country, tuition was virtually free. Virtually free. Anybody, regardless of income, could go. Today we have regressed significantly, and the cost of college is unaffordable for many. So we've got to address that issue and child care as well. If you're a working mom today, it is very hard for you to find quality, affordable child care. We have to deal with the disaster that is Wall Street. When you talk about the economy, we're not going to talk about significant changes in the economy unless you have a financial system whose job it is to get money out into the productive economy. The function of a bank is not an end in itself. It is to take money in and get money out into the productive economy to those businesses and institutes, businesses that are producing real goods and services, to help homeowners buy homes, to help people make the investments they need, not to be an island unto itself with the goal of making huge profits just for themselves. And what you see now is Wall Street and the major financial institutions are a world unto themselves whose only job is to make outrageous profits. Furthermore, what we have to do is reform our tax system so that the wealthy and large corporations pay their fair share of taxes. And we've got to protect the elderly and the sick. We have to not cut Social Security and Medicare. We have to expand those programs. So those are some of the areas that I think we can make some huge progress in and improve life for the middle class.
Brilliant. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Up next, your calls for Senator Sanders and your thoughts on his 12-point program to restore America's middle class. And welcome back. Senator, take some calls.
Let's do it.
Okay, Jim in Lockport, Illinois, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Tom, Senator Sanders, I hope you both had an enjoyable Thanksgiving. My question to the senator is, I noticed that the Congress is pushing a $585 billion defense budget, and why can't we take at least $5 billion of that and put it towards SNAP or our food assistance programs? I think, I think we have enough weapons.
Jim, I agree with you absolutely, and I would go further than $5 billion. Look, we need a strong defense. It's a dangerous world in which we live. But there is tremendous pressure from the military-industrial complex, folks who make huge monies from new weapon systems, to keep spending a whole lot of money on the military. And I will tell you that my Republican colleagues who will soon take over the Senate, who now control the House, they will go forward, unless I'm very mistaken, in trying to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, nutrition programs, all of the programs that the American people desperately need. And the one area they want to expand spending is in the military. So I strongly oppose that effort. I think you're right. I think we can make judicious cuts in the military and invest that in the needs of the American people.
Corky in Rochester, New York, watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator, I agree with all your points for plans to get the economy going. I would also like to volunteer to work on your campaign. I'll come to Vermont and sleep in your garage if I have to.
Corky, thanks very much. As I've said many times, I am giving thought to running for president. That is a very, very difficult and monumental decision for my family and myself and for those people who support me. And we're just trying to ascertain the kind of support. If I ran for president, it would be a very different type of campaign. And for us to win, it would require literally an unprecedented level of grassroots activism on the part of people who are prepared to take on the billionaire class and work hard to make that happen. And we're trying to ascertain what kind of support there is out there. But thanks very much for your support, Corky.
Senator, we have just a minute until the break. What does it say about the state of democracy in our republic when a presidential candidate whose positions are supported by well over 80% of America, virtually all of these positions, has to be considering money before running for president?
It's a money situation, and, I didn't talk about Citizens United or McCutcheon. Look, it is horrendous, and as I have said many, many times, at the end of the day, what I worry very much about us losing our democratic traditions and moving to an oligarchic form of society. Tom, if you were today a billionaire, you were worth billions of dollars, and you walked into the Washington press room inside the Beltway media and said, look, I am worth billions of dollars, I'm thinking of running for president of the United States. If a person, not you, but if a person who no one had ever heard of, that person would be tomorrow a very significant candidate, an important candidate for president of the United States, because by definition he or she had billions of dollars and could mount a very, a lot of television ads and so forth. And that is what is happening in our country. Money talks. People who have great ideas, who don't have a whole lot of money, are second-class political figures.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be back with your calls for the senator right after this. 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. It's Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, taking your calls. Mark in Tacoma, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you very much. First, the United States has a great many problems. I get this. Here are two questions, or possibly three, in order to make any changes, you first have to create the environment where these changes can be made, correct?
Yes.
Okay, would you support a constitutional amendment that removes all created entities from our legislative and electoral process and directly ties campaign contributions to our economy? That constitutional amendment is actually posted on constitutional-rights.org.
Well, what I would support, Mark, is the immediate moving as quickly as we can to overturn Citizens United, move to public funding of elections. I think that's the most important thing that we could do now, and that means that ordinary people, rather than just the very wealthy or those candidates supported by the very wealthy, will be able to run for office.
Danette in Hinesville, Georgia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, thanks, Tom. Hi, Senator Sanders.
Hi.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the middle class and no talk about the poor. You know, I guess my question is, beyond what you support for the middle class and all of the things that you listed, for people who are hungry, people who don't have jobs, people where the like there's divestment, is that the right word? Or disinvestment, I'm not sure which word is correct.
Sequestration, is that the word you wanted?
Well, no, not even sequestration. I mean like Detroit, where
Yep. Okay.
The cities are blighted and there's no jobs and there's nothing for them. What are you going to do for that, you know, for like rebuilding the cities so that there are places that people want to shop and people want to come and have it be alive again? You know, Detroit is a great example of that.
Well, first of all, I think the first point that you made is that we do not discuss poverty enough. And you're absolutely right. It's not a word I think that was on the lips of terribly many candidates in the last election. And the fact is that we have over 40 million Americans who are living in poverty today. The number is almost as high as it has ever been in the history of America. We have poverty growing among senior citizens. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. So the solutions, I think, what we have got to do is twofold. Number one, obviously, you have to create an economy where people have decent-paying jobs. If somebody has a decent-paying job, they're not going to live in poverty. Second of all, while we attempt to do that, you have to protect those people. And that means we make sure that nobody in America goes hungry, that we learn from countries around the world where the rate of childhood poverty is not 18%, but in Scandinavia and elsewhere it's 3, 4, 5%, because you provide help to moms and dads to take care of their children and provide educational opportunity for those kids, including early childhood education. My Republican colleagues have a Robin Hood policy in reverse. They take from the poor and they give to the rich. My view is that we take from the rich and we give to the poor. We want to help those people who are hungry, and we have a lot of people who are hungry in America. That means expanding nutrition programs, not cutting the food stamp program. But simultaneously, you have to build an economy where young people do not experience 18% unemployment, but are able to go out and get decent-paying jobs and start careers. But your point is we cannot turn our backs on the millions and millions of people who are struggling, and that's absolutely right. And that fight is going to come up in the next few months. Our Republican colleagues will want to cut Medicaid, throw more people off of health insurance. They're going to want to cut back on nutrition programs, cause even more hunger in America, cut back on early childhood education, make a bad situation even worse. So your point is absolutely right. We have got to protect the most vulnerable people in this country, the elderly, the children, the disabled, our veterans, and I intend to play an active role in that.
Mike in Upland, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. It's an honor to speak with you. I just have a question, and Tom mentioned like 80% of the American public would agree with your positions, but somehow you and more broadly the Democratic Party and the president are unable to communicate these positions and win elections based on the public supporting their positions. What can you and the Democratic Party do to resolve this?
Well, Mike, that is a very good question. And let me amplify it by saying that everything, or virtually everything, that I have said this morning in terms of what I think is a sensible economic agenda for America is supported by the vast majority of the people. Should we rebuild our infrastructure and create jobs? Yes. Should we raise the minimum wage? Yes. Should we do pay equity for women workers? Yes. Should we transform our trade policy so that it works for workers and not just multinational corporations? Yes. So on all of these issues, we do have support. And you just saw that, oddly enough, in this last disastrous election of a few weeks ago, where the Democrats got their clock handed to them. And yet, in some of the very conservative states, there were 4 states out there that voted very strongly to raise the minimum wage, and then voted for Republican candidates for the United States Senate who are opposed to raising the minimum wage. What do we do about that? Well, well, I think there are a couple of points. I think you touched on one of them. The truth of the matter is the media in general, which is corporately owned, is not inclined to focus on the plight of working families. And one of the reasons that I love this particular program is that every week that I'm on it, we hear from real people who talk about the real struggles that they have economically. And for every person who talks, there are hundreds of thousands of people who have the same experience. I don't think the media is particularly interested in that. So what you have the media doing is focusing on sensationalism, or, suddenly there's a great Ebola crisis, and we had weeks of Ebola. But we don't talk about, we have Ferguson. Well, you want to hear the real story of Ferguson? It's not just police brutality, and it's not just young black people being picked up willy-nilly on street corners, on streets all over America by police. It is that African-American youth unemployment is 30%. 30%. We're losing an entire generation. How often do we talk about that? So I think there are a lot of reasons why, but clearly we have got to do a lot better job in getting the word out.
Senator Bernie Sanders will be right back with more of your questions right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
It's Brunch with Bernie here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Your thoughts on Senator Sanders' 12-point plan to revive America. Stick around. Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of economic and labor news. You need to know this. The wealth gap in our country isn't only increasing inequality, it's putting people out of work. In an interview with Lynn Paramore of Alternet, economist Barry Simon and Steve Fazzari explained how long-term and rising inequality kills jobs and holds back our entire economy. Many economists believe that inequality is only a short-term problem and that it leads to those at the top spending more and creating jobs. However, this new research shows that that's just not the case. Sinamon and Fazzari's research, which is part of the Institute for New Economic Thinking, proves what many of us have been saying all along. When the vast majority of people struggle to survive on decades of stagnant wages, they don't have money to spend, and thus they don't stimulate the economy, and thus more people end up out of work. As 3 decades of Reaganomics has put more and more money into the hands of the few, as this new research explains, quote, it will become more difficult for the economy to generate the sales it needs to support job creation, end quote. And as many of us know, all that talk about trickle-down and job creators is nothing but lies. In order to create an economy that works for all of us need to have a little money to spend. It's the only real way to increase demand, which spurs job creation, and it will start closing the wealth gap once and for all. As Mr. Fazzari explained, quote, broadly, I think we need to work toward a goal of shared prosperity, wage growth that keeps up with productivity growth across the income distribution, end quote. In other words, we need an economy that works for more than just those at the top, and it's up to us to fight for it. Seattle's socialist city council member wants homeless people to have access to the internet. Last week, Shama Sawant said she thinks that a portion of the upcoming city budget should be used to improve the lives of people living in homeless camps, and that includes having access to the World Wide Web. More conservative members of the council think that the budget should be devoted to other causes. However, Shama Sawant argues that internet access will help these individuals apply for jobs, contact family and friends, and keep up with news and current events. These days, many job applications and other important services are only available online, and this internet access could certainly help more homeless people get back on their feet. Regardless of whether Seattle City Council approves the measure or not, it's nice to see that Shama Sawant is one lawmaker who understands that internet access should be a right, not a privilege. For at least the second year in a row, Walmart is asking employees to donate food to coworkers who can't survive because of Walmart's poverty wages. Instead of paying people a living wage, the company is holding in-store food drives and asking workers to succeed by giving food to their fellow associates. Of course, it's no surprise that Walmart finds no shame in asking others to pick up the tab for their poverty wages. The company is already subsidized by you and me, the taxpayers, to the tune of $6.2 billion a year in government assistance programs for employees who don't make enough to survive. But asking their low-paid workers to pick up the tab for their practices is certainly an all-time low. If Walmart really cared enough about whether workers have enough to eat, they could simply pay a living wage and stop asking the taxpayers and now their employees to cover that cost. Lorenda Jackson, a Walmart worker in Ohio, said, quote, "My coworkers and I don't want food bins. We want the Waltons to improve pay and hours so that we can buy our own groceries," end quote. What will it take before Walmart gets that message? Republicans in Tennessee still won't expand Medicaid to help people in their state get affordable health care. But one couple is refusing to give up on that fight. Larry and Linda Drain are now the unofficial faces of Medicaid advocacy in their state. Last week, the couple organized a public rally outside the Tennessee Capitol and delivered a 48,000-signature petition to Governor Haslam, calling on him to expand Medicaid. Larry and Linda's income was slightly above the threshold to qualify for TennCare, that state's public insurance program, but they did not make enough to cover the cost of Linda's epilepsy medication. Because their state won't expand Medicaid, which would put the threshold at 138% of the poverty line, the couple had no choice but to divorce after 33 years of marriage. By living separately, Linda's able to qualify for the lower threshold and get her life-saving medication. But she had to give up living with her husband just to survive. So the couple is fighting for their marriage and for the 161,000 people who can't afford health care in their state without the Medicaid expansion. In an interview with the Think Progress blog, Larry said, "My idea is that I should get to live with my wife. It's nothing radical." Now it's up to Tennessee Republicans to live up to those family values that they love to talk about so much. And finally, if you care about ending world hunger, you should work to empower women. That's the finding in a new report by the Bread of the World Institute. The report called When Women Flourish, We Can End Hunger says that discrimination against women is one of the leading causes of persistent hunger and malnutrition. Women and girls who get a quality education typically have fewer children, are more likely to work as adults, and are more likely to have decision-making power in their households and communities. The authors of this report said, quote, "There is no greater force multiplier than empowered women. When we make women's rights and opportunities top priorities, we stand a much better chance of defeating intolerance, poverty, disease, and even extremism. To change the world, let's help women and girls realize their power." And that's the way it is for the week of December 1st, 2014. I'm Thom Hartmann on the Economic and Labor News. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls, and in particular on his 12-point suggestion, rebuild our roads, reverse climate change, number 2, number 3, create jobs, number 4, protect unions, number 5, raise the wage, number 6, pay equity, number 7, making trade work for workers, number 8, cutting college costs, number 9, breaking up the big banks, number 10, bringing health care to all, number 11, ending poverty, and number 12, stop tax dodging corporations. It's absolutely brilliant. And Bernie, welcome back.
Okay.
Or Senator, excuse me. Let's pick up some calls here. Brian in Springfield, Massachusetts. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you for taking my call. My question is with regard to unions and companies. About a month ago, Fairpoint Communications Workforce, the contract they have with their union has expired. And rather than work under the bargain contract while they negotiate, they imposed their own contract, which in turn triggered a strike about a month ago. So Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, telecommunication workers are on strike. And I was wondering if Mr. Sanders could give his opinion on that, or if he sees any positive outcome, hopefully, in the near future.
Well, Brian, thank you very much. I am more than aware of that situation with Fairpoint, which impacts the people and the workers in Maine, New Hampshire, and my state of Vermont. And we have met with the workers in the union. I've been on the phone with the leadership of Fairpoint, and I think your description of the situation is exactly right. What Fairpoint is basically saying to the union is if you don't accept major cuts in pensions and in future health care benefits, and if you don't allow us to outsource jobs out of our region for very much lower wages, in other words, continue the race to the bottom rather than paying new workers decent wages, having another tier of significantly lower wages, that's it. That's what we're offering. You take it or leave it. The result has been, I can tell you, that in these three states, a whole lot of people are now seeing terrible service. And it's a very important issue because telephones, needless to say, are occasionally life and death. If you're having a heart attack or you need medical service or there's a fire in your house or a crime, you need to get to the proper people. And some people are not able to do that. So I think we've seen a significant deterioration in service as a result of Fairpoint's actions. And I am working as hard as I can to demand that Fairpoint come back to the table and negotiate in good faith, which they are certainly not doing now.
Tom, in Medea, Pennsylvania. Am I saying that right, or is it Media, Pennsylvania, Tom? You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, that's Media, Pennsylvania. I'm a union person myself. I was a union representative for 22 years. I was a locomotive engineer for infrastructure improvements, highways, rails, and everything. Because that benefits everybody, including the corporations and big stores like Walmart that depend upon transportation and have, their fuel costs dependent upon how good the roads are. My concern is the cost, the net cost. It looks like it's going to be $1 trillion a year, but you'll have me sold on this plan to the point where I'll support it if you can just give me a answer on two questions that I have. One, what do you think is going to be the net cost per year of providing all these good jobs? And is it going to be just paid through taxes, or the corporations and all going to have to pay for it? Because I'm a taxpayer myself. And number two, are all these new construction jobs going to go to American citizens, or are they going to be eligible for people that just have a work permit that will be allowed to work throughout the country if President Obama's executive action goes through?
Okay, let me answer the first one first. It's not $1 trillion a year. It would be a total of $1 trillion spread over several years. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates we need $3 trillion of work, so let's get to work and do it and put workers back to work. Second of all, Tom, we need jobs for everybody in this country, and I think this business that, I support Obama's executive action. I think we have to deal with the immigration situation in this country, which is now completely broken. People are in this country and get a work permit. They're allowed to work on jobs. But we need to put all of our people back to work. And this is the most significant way that I know to put people back to work, not only at work, but at work at decent jobs. And I don't want to get hung up, and I hope we don't get hung up on new Americans or immigrants versus people who are born in this country. That's not the issue. It's not black or white or Hispanic or anybody else. It is creating jobs for all of our people. And the fastest way that economists tell us we can do that is by rebuilding our infrastructure. Now, you ask a good question, how do you fund these things? Well, I'll tell you how you fund it. For a start, we are losing at least $100 billion every year by companies that stash their profits in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and other countries in order to not pay American taxes. And that's an issue I'm going to work on very, very hard. But I think it's time that these large corporations, some of which, like General Electric, Verizon, over a period of years, pay nothing in federal income taxes. Nothing, not a nickel. You pay more than they do. So let's demand that corporations and the wealthy, who are doing phenomenally well, start paying their fair share of taxes. Let's put that money, among other places, into rebuilding our infrastructure. Let's put all of our people back to work. Let's not get hung up. This country, one of the things the Republicans have done very successfully is they divide us and divide us. First it's on race, and then it's on sexual orientation, and it's women versus men. They always do that. Let's put our finger where the real problem is, and that is the greed of the 1%, the billionaire class, who don't want to pay their fair share of taxes. So let's ask them to start paying. Let's put it into infrastructure to create jobs for all of our people.
Jesse in Plainfield, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah. Hey, Bernie, it's an honor to talk to you. I got a quick question. There's a bunch of us, we work. Some of us make in between the 18 to 22 hour, per hour range, which is a livable wage.
Right.
But if they raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, what's that going to do to us? Like, if some guy's making $18 an hour and you can make $3 less working at a McDonald's and you have no skilled trade, what's that supposed to do to us?
This is a good question, Jesse. And what I think we do, and I don't think you're going to have a $15 an hour minimum wage tomorrow. I think it's going to go up. Right now, the minimum wage at $7.25 is about where it was in real dollars in 1964 or something. So I think, Jesse, when you raise the people at the bottom, you're going to have to raise the people in the middle as well. The most significant economic problem that our country is facing is the growth of low-wage jobs, and it's absolutely imperative that we raise those jobs. So people who are working at $8 or $9 an hour should move up to at least $15 an hour over a period of time. People who are working at $18 or $20 an hour, which is a livable wage, should also be going up. So I think it's a positive for people in that wage bracket. It drives wages up, and that is what exactly we have to do. There was a study that came out recently, Jesse, points out, listen to this, that the average male worker today is making $700 less in inflation-accounted for dollars than he made 41 years ago. Women are making less than they made in 2007. So what you're seeing is median wages, the median wage earner his wages are going down. We've got to raise those. And I think raising the minimum wage impacts not only the lowest wage increases, it's going to be a trickle-up theory impacting middle wage employees as well.
Bill in Maine, is it Bowdoin, Maine, listening on AM 670? Bowdoin, thank you. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, and good day, gentlemen. Senator, first of all, I applaud your proposal's focus on college students and trying to reduce those costs, because the debt being saddled on young people today is almost criminal. It's certainly immoral. But I also happened to spend some time in Detroit, and a caller earlier mentioned it, and that city itself is revitalizing. One of the things I noticed it needs is there are people moving back downtown. They're young people. They're going to start having families. What will keep them down there is good and safe schools. And so I wanted to know if you had any focus on that.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, I think we need a revolution in this country in the way we do education. And for a start, it might be a good idea if we focused on education and we understood the importance of education. And clearly, as a nation, starting with the very youngest children, we are not giving educators or families the support that they need. From the earliest age, we have a child care system in this country which is a total disaster, which means that millions of kids, by the time they get to schools, which are often not of the quality we want them to be, but by the time they get to schools, are already behind many other kids. So I think, to answer your question, Bill, we focus on education, which means that we make education and teaching an honored profession, a well-reimbursed profession, as many other countries do, and that we make sure that We are not laying off teachers. We're not cutting foreign language programs or art programs because we don't have the resources to do that. A caller earlier mentioned that we're looking at a huge military budget. There are some people who think that it's important that we spend more on the military than the rest of the world combined. I don't agree with that. I would like to see us say, we're spending more per capita on education, and we have the best educational systems in the world. So a lot of ways to do that, but we should certainly focus on the fact that and the need for every kid in this country to get a quality education.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. Brunch with Bernie. More of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
By the way that I got Senator Sanders' 12-point plan is by subscribing to the Bernie Buzz. You can do that over at sanders.senate.gov. And welcome back. Yvonne in Kingston, Georgia, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Network. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hi.
Senator Sanders. I worked and grew up in Michigan, and I'm all for unions. My question, and I love you 12 points, is as far as infrastructure, is that each state hires their own workers and starts their own unions to so every state has people working.
Sure. Now this is a 50-state program. Every state in this country has infrastructural needs, and the states should be the entities that are identifying what their needs are. In some states, the need is going to be roads. In other states, it'll be bridges, and other states, it will be rail, and other states, it'll be water systems or wastewater plants. Each state will have, I think, their own set of infrastructure priorities, and those states should be given the power to make the decisions as to where the money is going.
Imogene in Fresno, California. You're on the air watching Free Speech TV on Dish. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Imogene? Or Imogen? Apparently she's not listening to her telephone. Tom in Tucson, Arizona, watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Bernie, if this country spent not just $3 trillion more, but $5 trillion more to take care of all our needs for the time being, would it hurt the American capitalistic economic system if this country went in debt another $5 trillion?
I didn't hear the first part of the question clearly.
I think essentially the question was, if we're going to spend $3 to $5 trillion over some years to do everything you're talking about, and some or all of that gets added to the national debt, does that cause a crisis?
Good. Okay, good question. Tom, here's my response. The reason that the deficit and the national debt has gone up so much in recent years has an enormous amount to do with the fact that we fought in a war in Iraq, which will eventually end up costing us some $3 trillion unpaid for. We have given huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country, which will cost us huge amounts of money. We have a tax system in general which allows for huge loopholes for corporate entities that are not paying their fair share of taxes. And I think if we had a fair and progressive tax system that asked the wealthy and large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes, we could raise the revenue that we need to, in fact, invest in our country without driving the deficit up. And in terms of the deficit, let me say this. I know many of my Republican colleagues talk about the deficit all the time. When Bush left office, we had the largest deficit in American history. It was $1.4 trillion. In the last 6 years, we have driven that deficit down very, very significantly, way below 50% of what it was, and compared to our GDP, we are in reasonably good shape. So it is a problem, but not a major problem. The more important problem is the collapse of the American middle class.
We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders in just a moment. It's 10 minutes before the end. 10 minutes before the hour, welcome back. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, a national town hall meeting with the senator. Keenan in Manitou Springs, Colorado. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. How you doing today?
Good.
Good. Well, anyway, I just wanted to get on with you again. I spoke with you last week from the perspective of the youth in our country. And as a person that only makes, I literally make $9 an hour. I make about a little over $200 a week after taxes. It comes out to like $12,000, $12,000 something dollars a year. And I just want to know what we can do as young people that are just getting the screws put on us so hard. My boss makes about $1 million a year, and we all make about $9 an hour. That's pretty, it's pretty standard these days, and they're basically screwing us to the point where we can't really do anything.
Keenan, I think, and thank you for raising that issue, because I think we do not pay enough attention to what's happening to young people. And I recall your call from a couple of weeks ago. We have a generation that went out into the labor force after the great Wall Street crash, where it was very, very difficult to find jobs, and often, if people did find jobs, they weren't in line with their educational background. What I think we need to do, as I've mentioned earlier, is I think for our lower wage workers, we need to make sure that low wage workers are not earning starvation wages, and $9 an hour today is totally inadequate. You can't live on $9 an hour. Tom, you may have seen there was a piece, I think, in the Huffington Post where some person mentioned that, I think it was a woman, who worked in McDonald's in Denmark. And she said, I work in McDonald's in Denmark, and because of labor negotiations, I make $20 an hour.
Right. Yeah.
Working in McDonald's.
Talked about it.
I've talked to McDonald's workers in this country who make $7.50 an hour. How does that happen? How can McDonald's pay $20 an hour in Denmark and $7.50 in this country? And the answer is they have union contracts or negotiations which raise those wages. So we have got to, if people are going to work in the fast food industry, or I'll give you another example. I was out in Nevada a couple of months ago, and they have a culinary workers union there, which has been enormously successful in making sure that those people who work in hotels, who clean beds, who do work that has been traditionally very low paid, those workers now, because of a decent union, are earning living wages. They're earning, $18, $20 an hour. They have good health care. So we don't have to identify that working in fast food or working in a hotel necessarily means starvation wages. It doesn't have to be that way. But it has a lot to do with the building of a union movement to protect those workers. So as I also, mentioned to the caller, I think we got to focus on education, making sure that people, regardless of the income of their family, if they need more education for better paying jobs, they should be able to get that education. They should be able to do that. And that we need to create millions of decent paying jobs in this country. So there's a lot that we can do, but I appreciate the caller focusing on the fact of the problems facing our youth. Youth unemployment today, nobody talks about this, is over 18%. African-American youth employment, over 30%. Those are issues that have got to be focused on.
Claire in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. Hi, Senator. First of all, thank you so much for having the courage to tackle the issues you tackle and speaking the truth in this insane world. My question is, how do we get more people thinking the way you do so we can have these conversations and effect some change? And hopefully you run in 2016.
Well, thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
You raise... the last election to me was obviously demoralizing for a number of reasons. I think the wrong guys won. But maybe even more demoralizing was the fact that something like, what was it, Tom, 36% of the people voted?
Yeah, in that neighborhood. It was low.
And that 80% of young people didn't vote.
Right.
So I think, Claire, you need what, I would call a political revolution in the sense of in a number of different ways, making it clear to working people and to young people that they live in a democratic society. And more of them really don't understand what democracy is about. and they do not believe that the political process is significant toward improving their lives. And in a variety of ways, through education, through organizing, we have got to change that. I was thinking, when I was mayor of Burlington way back when, I was elected in 1981 to be mayor of Burlington, Vermont. The first thing I did, I think even before I took office, after I was elected, is we had these very large town meetings. We brought people together. And we said, okay, what are we going to do for youth in our community? What are we going to do for economic development in our community? What are we going to do for women in our community? And huge numbers of people came out. And we listened to what they had to say. And then you know what we did? We started implementing those ideas so that people said, wow, my voice makes a difference. And 2 years later, when I ran for re-election, we had almost a doubling of the voter turnout because people said, you know what? Government is listening to us. I'm beginning to see things happen. So I think it's a chicken and an egg. I think we've got to organize people, put pressure on political leaders, get good people to run for office, make things happen, and make people see the difference. If you're marching in the streets for a higher minimum wage and we get that minimum wage, you're going to say, hey, government and politics mean something to my life. I've seen some results. If we get health care as a result of the efforts that we make. So we got to organize, we got to educate, we got to make things happen, and we got to make people see the difference in their lives because of political activity.
Senator, we have just 25 seconds to wrap up the hour.
I hope people pay a lot of attention to what's going on in Washington right now. Congress will shut down in either a week or 2 weeks. Some very, very important issues are out there in terms of tax extenders, whether or not we give more huge tax breaks to large corporations and ignore the needs of low-income people and the needs of sustainable energy. And there is a very large omnibus bill out there which is going to refund the government, and we should be paying attention to what is in it and what is not in it.
Senator, thanks so much for being with us this week and every week.
Thank you, Tom.
It is such a pleasure. And be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for the Bernie Buzz, his newsletter, get all the information. You can find him over on Facebook. We'll be back with Anything Goes Friday, although I want to start out by talking about how Chile, the country, has changed and why.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.